Hi, my name is Ian Cahill, and I'll be presenting my project over the Neville Road survey that I performed. Let me get this out of the way. So the location of this survey was in this tract right here, bounded by Neville Road and the Gulf, Colorado and Santa Fe Railroad, adjoined by two lots. And the tract is described by meets and bounds out of the Hitchcock West subdivision. So my objectives here were to perform a topographic survey for construction and grading purposes, to delineate the flood zones so that I could show the buildable area on the lot, and perform adequate research to represent the property boundaries correctly. And I also wanted to address some issues that I know from previous knowledge are there on the southern property line where it abuts Neville Road. So in order to perform the survey fieldwork, I needed to first do some preliminary research. Then I needed to find the monuments and then collect the data. So first I needed to find a way to control the elevation. So upon looking at the FEMA map that our lot falls on, we see that NGS monument AW0481 is pretty nearby. Our lot is right in here. So it's just opposite the railroad tracks. And then here is the data sheet for that monument. It's at 11.99 feet. So upon searching for the monuments, I found 3/8 inch rods at each corner of the tract. I found two 3/8 rods that were capped inset from those two southerly rods, but they were on the east and west property lines respectively. So that was another piece of evidence trying to figure out what was going on the Neville Road side. Also found the 3/8 inch rod, which is also the northeasterly corner of our parent tract and its parent tract. And then I found the concrete nail, which is the southeast corner of one of our parent tracts. I also found the FEMA monument AW0481 using the description on the data sheet opposite the railroad. So to collect this data, I used a radial stakeout method. Starting next to the FEMA monument, I carried the elevation nearer to the property with a very temporary monument. I then set up on Travis Street, which is due east of our property, a few hundred feet. I shot in the three rods along our east property line, as well as the rod that represented our parent tract's northeasterly corner, and the nail that represented our parent tract's southeasterly corner. From there, I shot in a row of topographic shots along our east property line, being sure to shoot the bottom of ditch, top of ditch, on both ends of the property, and then from there I did a 50-foot grid of elevation shots. I then needed to figure out how I could rotate these points to relate them to my next setup, since the lot was heavily wooded, and I needed to get on the other side of the lot to shoot in the western property line shots. What I decided to do was set a traverse point in the road. I guess it's not really a traverse point, it's just kind of a temporary point in the road, and then one near the northwest corner of the property that I could see from both where I was and where I needed to be to get the rest of the shots. So that's what I decided to do. I set the temporary point in the road, I set the temporary point near the northwest corner, and I also set a railroad spike at the base of a oak tree about 5 feet west of the proposed building area on the lot, and recorded its elevation, which came out to be 15.81, I believe, feet. Let me go back actually. Yeah, so I did my next setup on the opposite side, and I shot in the two rods or the three rods on the western property line, uh, as well as another row of topographic shots mimicking that of which I did on the east side. And then I did a 15-foot grid of topographic shots in the proposed building area. So yeah, I believe that's everything for the field work. And then the next thing to do was to perform the survey itself. The first thing I needed to do was my record research. So the two things I referenced most were the previous survey and the two parent tracks of our lot. So here are the field notes for the previous survey of our lot. Everything's fine and good. It's all good. They follow the calls correctly. The thing to note here is that the Neville Road has a varying width, and you'll find that in any document you pull in the subdivision, it'll have a varying width for Neville Road for whatever reason, and I was completely unable to find anything that that said that it wasn't varying in this stretch of the road, which led to some confusion, and that's part of the reason that there were so many issues on that south line to begin with. And then so maybe make a mental note of this bearing here, which is what they found to be the south line, and that's just based on the south line of track 2 out of one of our parent tracks that we'll look at in just a minute. So the first thing that we're looking at is the original Hitchcock West subdivision plat map. Here's us, lot 1, here's the railroad tracks. It's kind of sideways here, but I think you get the idea. So this Travis Street is along this east line of lot 1 of Hitchcock West. So that's a pretty good way to visualize where we are. We're kind of at the top right here, or yeah, middle, top middle. And then moving on, here's the here are the two International Port Authority tracks that were cut out of that lot 1 that we just looked at. This was the original. These were cut out of that. Our lot was cut out of these two. So tract 1. Basically, these lots just run kind of through here with the bearing of the Jack League, which is west of us. It comes through here and cuts out around the diversionary canal. That's what that curve is. So it kind of runs down this way between the two tracks, the line between them. So our track runs down here, and the line between the Port Authority tracks runs this way. So our track runs through the two Port Authority tracks. And we can find in the description, if I can look for it for a sec. So here is the call for that concrete nail that we found along the north line of Neville Road for tract 1. And then here's the northeast corner. That's the 3/8 inch rod that I found that abuts Travis Street and the railroad. So now that we know we're in the right place, we kind of think about what kind of control we're going to use. And because this northeasterly corner is also the northeasterly corner of lot 1 of Hitchcock West, I think it's definitely prudent to use that as a controlling feature, along with this concrete nail that runs about down here, which I also found that abuts Neville and Travis Street. So using those two as control for my rotation, well, I use those two for, I'm getting ahead of myself, I think. Using those for control as rotation for my drafting. So some more research into what might be going on in the road led me to the Hitchcock subdivision regulations, where they state that where necessary to the neighborhood pattern, existing streets and adjoining areas shall be continued and shall be at least as wide as such existing streets and in alignment therewith. And then they also state in Part A that the comprehensive plan of the city and shall be considered in their relation to existing and planned streets, to topographical conditions, public safety and convenience. There's what I was looking for. And in their appropriate relationship to the proposed uses of land to be served by such streets. So if they state that in order to benefit the neighborhood and have the neighborhood be, I guess, properly aligned, they're able to, I guess, relinquish or force you to relinquish a portion of the property as part of the right-of-way in order to, if you want to file a plat with the city. So yeah, when I reached out to the surveyor who set those offset rods, I talked to him about it, and he mentioned that they required that before they'd be able to file the subdivision, that they give enough of the road on the north line until it reaches a width of 65 feet. Yeah, so only from the north line. I guess the southern line was more established. There's kind of a neighborhood on the other side where we were kind of rural on our side. So the north line surrenders until the right of way reaches 65 feet, he said. So when I got to drafting, this is my final product of the survey. What I did when I was performing the drafting was I pulled the ASCII text file, and I noted the elevations from the NGS mark to the temporary mark I made, and then that temporary mark to the railroad spike. And then I canned the first setup since it was purely vertical. So noting that the railroad spike was at an elevation of 15.81, I continued by splitting the survey points by setup. So I had two setups here. One was on this east side next to Travis, about right here I was, and then one was around here. So I first rotated the first setup of points about this strong 3/8 inch rod that I found and this concrete nail that I found, since they were mentioned in the legal descriptions of the parent tracks. After that, they fell into place relatively well, enough that I didn't feel the need to note, how much they really deviated from the corner based on the legal description. And well, I got kind of ahead of myself, I guess. First thing I had to do in CAD was draw up the lot and its adjoining lot based on the legal description from Tract 1 and 2 of the International Port Authority, and also checked the previous survey tract to make sure it was the same. The previous survey of our tract to make sure it was the same. And then I rotated the points about the 3/8 inch rod and the concrete nail, and they looked like they were in a good place. They fell onto the legal description very well, so I didn't make a point of noting how much they deviated. And then from that point, I took my second setup of points, rotated them about the two traverse points. One was about here in the street, and then one was about over here. Rotated those points about one another so that they were connected in space. And again, these rods fell into place pretty well. And the final kind of decision regarding boundary was deciding what to do about these two rods that were inset. So based on the City of Hitchcock survey regulations, or plat filing regulation, subdivision regulations, this line was the actual right-of-way of the subdivision. Whether or not you own it, it is a right-of-way. And then, so from here, I decided to mark it as the apparent right-of-way, which was kind of held the position that I believe that it was the actual right-of-way of the property, not the line called for in the original legal description. And then from there, I used these two rows of elevation shots, and I kind of interpolated the location of 13 feet on either side, and then drew a line between them to represent the 13-foot contour that would be used, because outside of the zone X that the center of this tract falls in, it's AE 13, which we'll see in the FEMA map in just a sec. I think you may have seen it a few slides ago too. Or, let me just go to it. yeah, AE 13 right here, which is what all this falls under. So I did that, marked all that, made sure that all my elevations were referenced about the elevation of that railroad spike, so that they were all correct. And then I did a rough perimeter of the buildable area, since it's not really a building area, it's just kind of something I did for the sake of the project. And then from there, I referenced the adjoining deeds, Jeremy Melchor International Port Security, showed the 220-foot right-of-way for the Gulf Colorado and Santa Fe Railroad, Travis Street, 50-foot right-of-way, and then I still noted Neville Road as varying width. I didn't think that it was a good idea to call it a 65-foot right-of-way, considering that I wasn't completely sure that it was 65 foot all along. I was thinking that maybe that might be unique to our section, so I decided to go with varying width, like the people before me. I think that's about it. Make sure I noted all the so I did passing calls for these, even though I held it and called it the right-of-way line, just because I felt the need to reference the original corners in the survey. This may be a mistake. I don't know. Different people have told me different things at this point. But yeah. Show all my bearings and distances here. Mark all my annotate all my corners. Blah blah blah. Yada yada. Scale bar. North arrow. And then here's my legal description that I finished. Came out to 2.429 acres with the cutout of that right-of-way line, commencing at a 3/8 inch iron rod. Well, let me read the whole thing. A 2.429 acre tract of land out of Lot 1 of Hitchcock Subdivision West, according to the plat recorded in Book 119, page 22. That's this guy. In the office of the county clerk of Galveston, Texas, further being out of those tracts of land conveyed to International Port Security by James Ralph Collins. These two guys are the International Port Security tracts. as described under County Clerk file number blah blah blah, being more fully described by meets and bounds as follows. Commencing at a 3/8 inch iron rod found for the northeast corner of Tract 1 of the International Port Security Tracks on the westerly line of Travis Street, which is a 50-foot right-of-way. That would be this guy right here. Then north 68 degrees 33 minutes 0 seconds west along the northerly line of Tract 1, a distance of 179.35 feet, to a 3/8 inch iron rod found for the northeast corner and point of beginning of this tract. Then south 16 degrees 30 minutes 0 seconds west, parallel with the easterly line of said International Port Security Tracks, a distance of 572.19 feet, to a 3/8 inch iron rod found for the southeast corner of this tract. Then south 79 degrees 30 minutes 31 seconds west along the northerly right-of-way line, a distance of 190.98 feet, to a 3/8 inch iron rod found for the southwest corner of the tract. Then north 16 degrees 30 minutes 0 seconds east, parallel with the easterly line of said Tract 1 and across Tracts 1 and 2 of the International Port Security Tracks, a distance of 673.41 feet, to a 3/8 inch iron rod on the north line of said Tract 1 of the International Port Security Tracks, found for the northwest corner of the tract. Then south 68 degrees 33 minutes 0 seconds east along the north line of Tract 1, a distance of 170.67 feet, to the place of beginning and containing 2.429 acres of land, more or less. So yeah, that's my survey of the Neville property. It was a really interesting experience. I got to pick the brain of a lot of really smart people, see what they thought about it, and there was a lot of interesting opinions on how I should go about doing this with a dispute like that, and whether or not I should show it as the original or the new right-of-way line, considering previous to filing the subdivision, it was always being sold as 2.5 acres, never represented by that line. So I had a lot of fun with this one, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thanks.